Hello, this is Shoshana from Color Karma. I am again here with Ryan Stanley from PVH,
Hello, hello.
Joe Zach from KUIU,
Hello.
and Goor Moshe from Twine. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So our last conversation, we were talking about workflow, which is kind of, the overall process, right? And who owns the color, right? We talked about Coats is a great partner for Gore to have, for Twine to have, for Gore, you too.
Gore at Twine.
And everybody uses, pretty much everyone uses Coats. But Joe, as it relates to KUIU and your other roles previously, where would you see this in your workflow?
Well, I would definitely see this in a place that helps to make my job a lot more simpler, but also a lot of the stages within the cycle of making a garment for a brand. I would definitely like to see this in the salesman sample, go-to-market samples before you make the decision to go to bulk. The reason for that is mainly because go-to-market samples are such small runs, you're doing smaller runs, but also having the creative process of seeing colors in those small sample sizes. So again, to go to the point of sustainability, not utilizing so much yardage to see those sample runs, but also getting to see the colors that you want to see.
Great. And it's also a great way for people who are trying to, COVID has pushed people from a physical experience really into that digital workflow. They just kicked us right into the deep end there. And so, having that small run, 20 meters you showed us, Gord, do you still have that? It's
the cards.
That's a great way to see a sample than having to ship it from overseas and really get that, I'll say it's a crutch kind of, but it is to help us get through and start trusting what we're experiencing digitally to experience and start having that confidence in that digital workflow. Ryan, how do you see that in your workflow at PVH?
Being able to be dynamic. Again, I think as we push more and more at PVH to that digital environment, you get outside of traditional color standard providers, right? You have the Pantones and the Archromas and the CSIs and the Coloros and the like, and they have their canned libraries that have served us well. But, design always wants something new. They always want something different. They're always going to find a way to get at something new and different. And whether it be partnering with global mills and vendors that have their own vendor libraries, or a designer as he or she becomes more technically capable, walking around with a handheld colorimeter or a handheld spectrophotometer, walking through a park and grabbing the green of the leaf or the blue of a dress at a show or something like that, being able to then quickly execute that color. Or what's achievable with globally available dyes and chemicals, partnering with dye and chemical companies for the colors that actually are achievable, not just the ones in standard libraries, or a best can do in execution. All right, we wanted this bubble blue color, but we couldn't get it for technical limitations or timing limitations. So we had to approve this best can do sample. Now I want to see it quickly. Right. This is what we're producing in the past. What is it actually? So you're right. I think it's a bit of a crutch going back to the analog world, but it's dynamic enough that allows design or execution or whomever in the chain to be able to quickly, digitally, anywhere in the world, grab that thing, produce it physically, see it, use it. To Joe's point, create a salesman sample if needed to show the team, and then now you've pulled something out of that digital world into your analog world to use it when needed. That's what I think is fantastic about this.
Ryan and I've always talked about this specific scenario, and he touches on it, where a designer has a small little not even a spectral colorimeter of some sort that's in the field where they have a way to connect digitally to Ryan or Joe and say, do you have this color? How does Twine work with, you have the CSI rooms of color and Pantone and Archrome and all that. Do you help or collaborate with brands to load their own color libraries?
Yeah, so of course, I mean, with a brand, a global brand, or any brand really, the has is they've got their own color catalogs.
Mhm.
Of It'll be connected in the cloud. Of course, we will create the catalog or allow the or my words have kind of disappeared, but to basically enable them to have their own catalogs,
Right.
and which will only they will see,
Right.
and they'll be able. The beauty of it is that they can develop their own colors. If, for example, you've received a color from a designer, because it's a digital code, you can adjust to it. So you can start off with, let's say, one of these colors, right? And you say, okay, I like that kind of pink, but it's maybe I would like to add a bit of redness to it. Then, because it's just like your printer in essence, you can say, okay, just add a bit of magenta to it. Add a bit of magenta and yellow, give a bit of orange to it. You can
So they can be
basically,
creative within the program.
oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't
That's the
realize
beauty
that.
of it.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the screen you see behind you, I can actually go in and key in. Like if I receive an LAB value, if I receive your QTX, right, and extract that LAB value from it, the system will then interpolate that into the RCMYK, and you'll be able to kind of adjust and start playing with it, because you'll want to correct. You'll find out that this is not quite accurate. You're maybe 2 delta E off what you actually wanted, maybe. If you want to play that, if a brand's saying, okay, I want to be accurate here.
Right.
So they'll be able to adjust and play with the recipe in order to get closer to get that more accurate color. And then once they're happy, they're just good to go. It's now you can save it into your catalog. So you treat this system just like a printer. You treat it just like, except that you've got your interface that you'd have in Adobe or any other digital.
It's no different than a digital printer or an ink printer, where you have to adjust either the color, the ink wells, or on the digital presses themselves, the color curves, right, to adjust. But if you do that, how do you then get that data back into, again, to manage a supply in terms of sales sample to what's in production, right?
yeah. Can you pull that
Right.
QTX out for a color that you just created in the Twine system? Like, yeah,
So
that's
we need to be able to be able to translate it back to an LAB value to send off to. And yes, I mean, because we're emulating and we're reading an LAB, we just convert it back. And if, for example, in Coates's example, is they're reading RCMYK, and because they know RCMYK and they've got their algorithms in the background, in the future they'll be able to read our CMYK and basically say, okay, let's go straight to analog. So that's the goal. That's basically where we want to go to.
I've got a question for Joe as a fellow person at a retailer brand. I know PVH has a lot of particular performance requirements or restricted substance list requirements and things like that. Do you guys have to pay attention to the same thing? And how would, and then after Joe, like Goor, like how would you potentially take that into account? Like, do you partner with the brand to provide that information, or?
Well, for us, like definitely we have to pay attention to like RSL and things like that, because it's not just us, but like I think it's like an industry-wide thing where everybody kind of has to pay attention to it, because something could happen and it could disrupt the brand for sure if it's on there.
I mean, it's I think because the way we see it is that we're a new technology, new company. What we say is basically with your suppliers, if you're in the sampling and development process, we don't have, of course, the tool right now to say, okay, automatically, or the algorithm that can just solve everything immediately. But early in the process of color decisions about color, if you can create your own lab dip, let's say, for example, you would send it off to your thread supplier early while you're sampling and developing, and they can match to physical sample that you've sent them, which is no different than you work today. And then in the future, of course, if your thread supplier has a Twine system, they'll be able to do their own matching without even the physical sample. They'll develop for themselves, and we would work with them. But again, the ones that we can work with, because of all our agreements in the background, they'll be able to work with the Twine recipes, to develop the colors.
So
you guys have your own dye stuffs and things, right? As part of I guess the overall package.
Yeah, so we sell the system and our own inks. So it's
Gotcha.
like a HP Indigo system.
right, so you have to replenish the inks is the key thing. And what kind of service is required on the device?
It's very simple, actually. It's like, so it's just a few. So you've got the inks that you replace, the filter system and filtration system that every 6 months or so you have to replace. In terms of, it's a very easy to use. Like, I mean, anyone, you don't need to have knowledge in color necessarily. You don't need to have knowledge in anything. You just need to know how to tie a yarn and connect the spool and hit go, and that's
Right.
it.
What's fascinating is we were talking about samples. We're talking about innovation and development in the design stage, right? Salesman samples, things of that nature, where, direct to consumer. I think straight away, the Converse store here in Boston, right? That could be easily in the back where I can, because you said embroidery. I can have it embroidered, custom made on my Converse sneaker, right in the store. That's mine. I'll never give up those shoes. I'm coming back. And that's a whole other added value and experience for a brand, right?
Spoke unit of one.
A bespoke unit of one, because I mean, at PVH, you saw Calvin Klein is one of your brands.
Yep.
Right. So Calvin Klein can be found in many retail stores, plus their own retail stores. So how does Calvin Klein differentiate their own retail stores? Can you add or certain patterns or designs or flowers or, on an undergarment or on shirt that says, if you come to the Calvin Klein store, this is a different experience?
Yeah, no, technologies like this, I think, are enablers, right? So to quote some old mentors of mine, you have technology levers, right? And you use those levers to be able to, be more dynamic or adaptive in the industry. And, color on demand is one of those levers, right? So potentially, we've been talking about a lot of design. We've been talking about matching existing standards or matching what the mills or vendors get you. But Shoshana, no, you're exactly right. Like, what if we take it a step further? Like, what if you allow color creation directly to and or from the consumer,
right?
And have them pick what they want? They go through a little online color picker, or if and when the world comes back, we get back into stores and we can see people in person again. Have somebody come into a store and actually pick the color themselves and then execute directly on a product, depending upon how that unit of one is made. No, it's unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole concept of on demand and now mass customization coming in, the fact that it's digital and it's dynamic, you can create even color gradients. So you can, those same colors that you saw, and this is all a single yarn that's just changing colors, and they can change the pattern of it as you please. So the ability to even make small batches with the color that you developed as a brand.
Right.
So even if you said, I want to make 1,000 pairs of socks with the logos or the detailing on the logos, and you wanted your color, and you don't even need a dye house or a supplier to give you that color, because this thing can produce it for you. So
I think there's partnership that would definitely need to be done, like, or a higher level of partnership. And my head's always going like, a little bit further, like down into execution, right? What we were talking about earlier, making sure that we're executing to restricted substance list requirements, performance requirements, so the consumer still gets what they need. But I infer, correct me if I'm wrong, that as you grow and figure this information out, that could be a part of what's in or out of the achievable gamut for the brand that you're working with, right? Like if the dyes that you're using, there's more of a call out for, I'm making this up, wash fastness versus light fastness. You would know that depending upon how the system makes the color, and you could potentially allow or not allow, a consumer to go into that gamut, or give them an advisement like this will fail brand requirements, or just don't allow it.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, sorry, Shoshana, but just to answer the color fastness, I mean, of course, all these things, we have to meet the industry standards. We have to, otherwise what's the, it's not viable.
Right.
So we do. I mean, we certify ourselves.
So what's interesting is, you guys come from apparel background. I come from print background. So it's always, I get geeked out seeing print go into other types of technologies. But just like people don't realize we print on so many things, there's textiles on so many things. I mean, I've got my, you can't see it, my Remarkable pad. This is a fabric cover, right? I could have this embroidered. What would I pay for that? Or Timbuktu, which makes the bags right in California. Those are US made. Again, how do you differentiate a Timbuktu that you buy in a store to custom made from Timbuktu? I mean, it really changes that dynamic from, an innovation creation, right? Short runs, samples, proof points, bespoke. Does one region need a different region of volumes, to direct to consumer, right? What can you offer of that added value, enhanced experience for the consumer that makes them really stay loyal to the brand? I mean, it fits into all of those different areas. Yeah,
Absolutely.
really nice. I'm going to have one soon in my office, right? I'll be playing with that.
Why not?
I might start sending you a whole lot of QTXs then, I think.
You can send me all the QTXs you want, because I want to tinker with that. Can you hold up the sample? Because I think what I want to make sure, when you talk about thread, and I have this thread here is a solid color, you can actually produce a thread that changes color, or an ombre from one to the other, and fades. And watch Ryan's eyes start getting bigger.
I was about to say you can make heathers and patterns. That's awesome.
That's exactly it. So that's not
it's the same. It's these colors basically, which are spot colors that we dyed to match what I gave them as a
printout.
Yeah, printout. And I said match these, and then you can basically, because the yarn is, or the thread is running. As you're running, you can change the color and the shade, like in a printer.
Joe, what was the question you asked?
From one to the other.
I think Joseph and I were talking on the side, and you said something about being able to execute a pattern, right? What was your question?
Yeah, so one thing that's been kind of trending in the industry right now is like this garment dye look, where you have these high and lows of color of the same color in the garment. So the question was, would you be able to create a pattern on this yarn that would be
knowing how it would knit? Was that
knowing how it would knit in a garment, so that you could essentially recreate whatever, not just the garment dye effect, but any pattern you would like in the fabric, heathers, like you mentioned.
So I mean, to the limits of, again, just like the gamut has a limit, so to the limits of the mechanical, what's happening mechanically in that system, yes. So
really, wow. So if you if you had a Shimaseki machine or something, and you knew how it was going to be knitted or embroidered or whatever else like that, you could potentially figure out a way to manipulate the pattern, the coloration, to get whatever image or pattern you want.
Well, again, because yes, but to do a pattern where you would need to draw, like you almost create an image, would be very, very difficult. Because it means you have to change color within centimeters.
Right.
Right now, currently our limitation, but in theory, in the future, in theory, and it's something. For example, it's a shame I didn't have a sample here, but. You mentioned Shimaseki. We have, they are receiving our system now.
Oh, right.
So we're testing. We're going to do those tests that you're actually talking about, where if you take a knit which has, let's say, 6 colors, and you knit it in jacquard, right? So you're going to have 6 layers of yarn, which is going to be quite a thick textile. Mm-hmm. Well, and let's say you wanted this kind of leopard pattern, right? Where you see 4 different colors of the spots happening. So I can reduce those 6 into 3, right? Because I can change colors along the knits. That's stuff we've already done, basically. It's hard to see in the background, but there are kind of garments that we've done where, let me see quickly.
Off script, grab a sample.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you have like, this is one of the Twine socks that we did.
Oh, that's cool.
As a show.
That's
so you
cool.
it's a single yarn that's going from a dark purple to a pink.
Yeah.
Right. So in theory, I could like change the color over, you know, as it's knitting down the sock to change on the horizontal. If I needed a change here, you know, between here and here, in theory, one day we will, but right now that's not something we're able to do, but it opens up opportunities.
Oh yeah.
Right. So even the logos of the socks, you know, you could in theory change that if you wanted to. So that's a
Hey, it sounds like you can execute plaids, and that's all I care about. So.
With gradients in the middle.
So in the US, you know, typically men will wear the blue suits or dark colored suits, very, you know, standard solids. But in Europe, they do many more patterns and brighter colors in their suits or in the shirts. And I'm just thinking of, can you take that dark suit and change the color in the thread so that the stitching changes over time?
Sure.
Outline.
That'd be neat. What's that quote from The Birdcage? One must have a hint of color.
Exactly. Yeah. You could have it be dark blue, and as it comes up the collar, turn into bright pink. It just fades in, and I'm going, oh man,
I love that movie.
Spot on, great. I mean, it just enhances the creativity. But when it does that gradation, how much thread does it need to go from one to the other, or is it just like clean?
Oh, so it takes about, when you tell the system, you know, go from one shade directly to like cut to another shade,
yeah,
it'll take the minimum I've seen with this system is currently about 2 meters. It ranges from 2 to 3 meters of yarn. Okay. Now, if you've got a knit, like a flat knit, visually it might actually look quite immediate, right? Okay. So this is
depending upon the construction.
Yeah, it's. I mean, these here you've got like parts where I don't know. It's hard to see, but some parts look like a gradient. Yeah. And so, like this part here, where my finger is, it looks quite sudden, because by the time that 2 meters is being knitted in, visually in your eye, you actually see it as a sudden change. Yeah. And we've done quite a lot for embroidery, and embroidery is a good case as well, where you can create some rare, cool effects, basically.
Right. Yeah. So, Joe, how would you see this now, you know, knowing all the knits, the embroideries, the gradations? Has your thoughts changed on how you would use this, or how a supplier might use this?
Well, how a supplier might use this is this helps them, and they don't even have to tell the brand that they have this system in place.
Yeah, you're right.
like whenever they get an order, they essentially can just go ahead and start, especially in the sampling phase of making what the brand's asking for, all brands essentially, knowing that you have a 75 denier yarn in the back that's always going to be used across all these materials. Have a stock of white, a virgin white in the back. Whenever something gets ordered, you just pump it into the system and get the color that they want.
Yeah,
essentially, yeah.
And to your point, they don't have to tell the suppliers doesn't have to tell the type of equipment they're using as long as they meet the specifications. So suppliers just go, well, what's the volume? No different than a printer went from, you know, offset presses to digitals, depending on the length of the run.
These guys are great. They always give us exactly what we need. Yeah.
Somehow it magically is exactly what we need at the run we need, at the volume we need.
And also like the time of getting things in, it seems like this is like on demand versus waiting like a 45-day lead time of having to see something in person. So this is amazing.
Yeah. So
we talked about 2 weeks. He just said 45 days. Just for clarity again, how soon can I get a color and get 1,000 meters out of this?
1,000 meters takes 40 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Being
Yes.
inventories,
40
being able
minutes,
to
45 days.
yeah,
Yeah.
being able to not have to keep on hand like all of the potential inventories of colors, like brand core colors that would potentially be picked. You can just get what you want. Like that's
Yeah.
like
I mean,
convenient.
Brilliant.
yeah. So, and the cost, obviously there's the cost savings to it, but what I would recommend is that suppliers actually do tell the brands, because I'm sure the brands would like to know that this is a waterless process. And so you've not only saved the waste, which is huge,
It's a
but
sustainability story.
It's
yeah, so
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, if you take footwear uppers, like knitted uppers in the sports shoes sector, if this system's only on one shift a day, I calculated about 250,000 liters worth of water saved per
Oh,
system every year. So, if it's in China or Turkey and it's being used for 3 shifts, 750,000 liters of water per
Water.
system every year saved. I'm sure the big brands would like to be able to say, hey, part of our product or our product is sampled, saving this much. Um, so it is a big sustainability message. And then you've got, yeah, like we've been talking about earlier, the speed and the agility that you have to just move.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great sustainability system. I think it has to do with the relationship you have with the supplier. So some would say, no, I trust my supplier, send me a sample. And others, I think you would have to kind of go, like sneaking vegetables to your kid. Oh, you ate it. You liked it. That was printed on this machine, right? And they go, wow.
eat your
made me
broccoli.
Exactly. You made me eat my broccoli. So it's sustainable. So it depends on, how every customer is slightly different. It's how you bring them on board. It's that blind taste test, right? Is it Coke or is it Pepsi? And is it,
Yeah.
or I have something that can save, tons of water, have it on site, have it the way you want. Both work. It's just how you communicate it and how you
Yeah.
tell that story.
And that's the challenge that we have as Twine, is to find the partners who kind of get working with it, and then they become like, if our first customer is Delta Galil and in Israel, and they're a big manufacturer and brand. And if I dare take that system away from them now, that they just wouldn't be, they'd be very angry if I try to take it away. And even though it's not a central part of their supply chain in any way, it's just still early days and still developing. But they manufactured now for one of the big sports brands of the world, 5,000 pairs of socks with it. It's a message, it's a product that's going out. It took them about 2-3 weeks or so to sample and get approval for the project. So that in itself, they went also for the added value with the color gradients on the product. So yeah, it's definitely, it's something that's going to be inevitable as well. That's something that I think the brands need to take on board, is to say, and it's a question of how they make these decisions, obviously, and all these brands, is that inevitably we have to go this way. We have to digitize. We have to become more sustainable. And Coats, one thing was interesting listening to Coats people, is that they said for them, they see that they have to go digital, they have to become more sustainable, but they also raised the question of, what about new regulations that are coming? So one of their directors said, what if EU suddenly makes this decision that you must use water-based, reduce your water by so much
California
in your
Prop
dyeing process?
65.
Yeah. And he says, I'm saying something like as if it's, not, it's just a theory, but it's not a theory. It's coming.
It's happening.
He
Yeah.
basically, yeah. So we have to move. You
Yep.
can't just wait for it. So that's why they were interested in us. Yeah.
Well,
Sweet.
Goor, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. Ryan, always having a pleasure having you here. Yay. So thank you guys. This is Shoshana at Color Karma, and Ryan, Goor, Joe, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Bye. Take
Have
care.
a good day. Have a
Bye, guys.
wonderful and colorful day, guys.